Jeremy and Angie Brielle, husband and wife team from Michigan. They have a lease in northeast Missouri. Cool, crisp evening, and they've climbed into a stand that they're very familiar with on a finger that juts out right next to a food plot. So the doe pops out of the finger and into the field and starts eating, and she's not there too long, and he doesn't know what's behind her. He figured he saw a buck, but he doesn't really even know what class or for sure if it was a buck at this point. And Jeremy's reaching around for his extinguisher, and he realizes he's forgotten his back in the truck. Well, luckily, Angie, his wife, who's running the camera, happens to have her pink extinguisher with her, and she hands it off to Jeremy, who at this point is pretty darn happy that she's brought that one along. So the doe pops out of the finger, and her demeanor changes real quick. Her tail pops straight out, and she takes off down the field edge. Now this is the perfect scenario if you're a deer hunter. When you've got a buck that's trailing a doe, if he loses sight of her, your window of opportunity isn't going to get any better than this for a calling sequence. He hits 4 or 5 quick, immature buck grunts, and he changes his inflection on them. What he's trying to do at this point is get the attention of that buck and make him believe that another buck in the area has picked up that doe and is now dogging her.
Oh, there it is. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my.
And you can see by the reaction of this buck, that's exactly what happens. The buck hits the field edge, hears the calling, and is completely sold by the illusion, by the scenario that Jeremy's creating with these buck grunts. He goes right through her scent trail, trots across that open field. He knew exactly what was happening, and it was what Jeremy was creating for him. And the only thing he's convinced of at this point is what his ears are telling him. So he's trying to verify that with his nose and his eyes, and he can't do it. When they can't smell it and they can't see it, but they know in their mind it to be real because of what they heard, they get frustrated. And this is a great example of that. You can see his body language. He hangs up, and he knows he probably shouldn't go any farther, but he's so frustrated at this point that eventually he has to do that. And that's exactly what happens. Finally, this buck is convinced he has to move forward to verify what his ears are telling him. He quickly gets another arrow, keeps the composure, finishes the buck off. At this point, Angie pans to him with the camera, and you can see the flood of emotions that's coming across Jeremy here. Not only has he just killed the biggest buck of his life to this point, but he's also done it with his wife on the camera, which is pretty special for obviously the two of them. They got a big buck on the ground, and Jeremy's elated that his wife was able to bring her pink extinguisher with him that day, which I'm guessing he's probably going to be carrying that for a long time now.
I'm so happy.
Oh my God, I didn't think this was gonna happen. I just smoked the biggest buck of my life. Oh my gosh. I used this extinguisher grunt call, and he came on a beeline across this finger, down in the ditch, and stepped out at 23 yards. It works. I just showed you it works.
A doe came out. She turned with her tail out and ran north as if she was getting chased by the buck that we could see walking on the other side of the finger, but we just didn't know what he was. We waited a couple minutes, and I decided to do a grunting sequence. That buck that was with her came out of the finger, stood there, and made the decision to come to the extinguisher that we had just done a grunting sequence with. So had I not had that tonight, I would not be holding this deer right now.
So 2 key things happen in this hunt. When that doe pops out in the field and she's pretty calm, Jeremy's watching her intently. And as soon as her demeanor changes, as the buck's approaching her from back in the finger, she takes off down. Now it would have been easy at this point for Jeremy to immediately get on the call. But he has the patience and the wherewithal to know he's got to let her get out of eye shot of that buck. If he calls and that buck pops up to the field edge and that buck can still see that doe, the calling is going to be irrelevant to him. He's going to take off after that doe. By Jeremy waiting until she gets out of eye shot, when he calls and that buck pops up and can't see it, that convinces that buck that that doe's gone across to where the callings come from. That's a key element here, is the patience Jeremy had by reading what that doe was doing and giving her time to get out of the field so the buck couldn't see her before he called, really makes or breaks this hunt. And in this case, obviously it makes it. And then the second thing, as Jeremy is calling this buck across and he comes into the finger that they're in, he's able to read the body language of this buck. And that's a key thing here, because it would have been very easy as well to keep calling when that buck hung up. But by knowing what that buck was doing based on his body language and the signs he was giving Jeremy, Jeremy knew he did not have to call. And if he would have called, it probably would have blown up in his face and that buck would have been gone. There's a time to call and there's a time to be quiet, and both perfect examples of those things happened within a few minutes of each other in this hunt.
Want to experience the same results you just witnessed? Use what the Deer Society experts use. The Extinguisher deer call and black rack rattling system are the highest rated deer communication systems of all time, and less than 1% of deer hunters will have the opportunity to buy one this season. Get yours today at thedeersociety.com. Order now.